Welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. If you're like me, I hate to read the news in the morning. You think, what is going on? Trump said, I'm going to sue Cruz because Cruz isn't a citizen. He was born in Canada. Well, that means that all the children of all the servicemen and the people in the diplomatic corps, they're not citizens. I mean, it's nonsense. But that kind of fight. And then he says, well, they've been mean to me, and I might run as a third-party candidate. Okay. And then the president says, well, I'm going to fulfill my constitutional responsibility. I'm going to nominate somebody to the Supreme Court. And the Democrats, the Senate Republicans say, no way. We're not going to kick the balance of that court to the left. We're going to hold the line. And so let's just have a big slowdown in the fight. Don't you hate it? Maybe that's the way we're supposed to live. Do you get sick of this stuff? I do. I'm getting sick of all the bickering and the fighting between the candidates. Well, that debate down in South Carolina, it was ugly. Awful. It was really ugly. Nasty. You're a liar. You're another liar. These are lies. Oh, my. When Trump blamed George W. for 9/11, the crowd booed, and that was a Republican crowd. Trump's not doing himself any favors. He needs to kind of back up. Well, you don't blast the president of your party. Somebody said he's even worse than Michael Moore. I mean, this kind of thing just gets me sick in my stomach. Well, hey, go ahead. We've got good things today. Yes, it could be an election year showdown between President Obama and Senate Republicans over who will replace the brilliant Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Democrats say President Obama has the right to nominate whoever he wants, but Republicans say the next president should make that decision. Dale Hurd has the story.
President Obama has made it clear that he's ready to fight to replace the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia.
I plan to fulfill my constitutional responsibilities to nominate a successor in due time.
Senate Republicans are uniting behind Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in telling the president, don't bother. They want the next president to nominate Scalia's successor. Republican presidential candidates agree.
I do not believe the president should appoint someone.
I think it's up to Mitch McConnell and everybody else to stop it.
Now Republicans suggest they may not even hold a hearing on President Obama's nominee, no matter who it is. Hi. Both Democratic presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders expressed outrage at the Republican position, with Clinton signaling she's ready to make it a campaign issue.
So I'm hoping that we'll get somebody nominated that everybody will say, hey, the only reason to block this is pure partisanship. And so do your duty.
On ABC's This Week program, Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer accused Republicans of obstructionism.
Let him show me the clause that says the president's only president for 3 years. Does this mean we don't hold hearings on anything?
But in 2007, when President George W. Bush still had a year and a half left in his second term, Schumer was saying something else.
That we should not confirm any Bush nominee to the Supreme Court except in extraordinary circumstances.
Some think the president will try to make it tougher for Republicans by nominating a federal judge who has already been confirmed by the Senate. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
That court is lined up 5-4 with a conservative majority. If it goes the other way, it'll be 5-4 liberal, and those people sit for life. So we're not looking at 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. We're looking at maybe 20 or 30 years for whoever the next nominee is. And the Republicans have every right to say we're going to slow walk this thing. We're not going to be rushed. And but Chuck Schumer has flip-flopped, but they don't seem to have any shame. They just lie, and they just don't have any shame. Hey, I learned something yesterday that kind of appalled me, though. You know, Bernie Sanders is running for president.
Is he really?
And he won New Hampshire. But what I didn't know was that Bernie Sanders, until he was 40, was essentially a bum. He had no employment whatsoever. His first paycheck did not come until he was either 39 or 40 years old. And his job then was counting people who had food stamps.
I'm shocked. I had no idea.
Well,
I don't think people know that.
Well,
they do now.
I think they're going to know it in a hurry because a lot of people are going to be talking about it. But yeah, that shocks you, doesn't it? I mean, but he's a professional left winger, and I mean it's amazing. And now the liberal economists are saying, well, look, his plan will run up the budget deficit by 50% or more. I mean, it's a mess. Well, the political situation may be heating up in our nation's capital, but the temperature outside has been extremely cold. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Extremely cold is right, Pat. It has been very cold in Washington in the last few days, and even though it's finally starting to warm up now, much of the East Coast is still facing the fury of that weekend winter storm. Abigail Robertson has the story.
Rain, sleet, and snow are still plaguing the East Coast as the recent winter storm rages on. Travel advisories were still in effect today after slick streets and nearly 1,400 flight cancellations Monday. The storm came a day after dozens of locations in the Northeast shattered record-breaking low temperatures. At 9 degrees below zero, Boston saw its coldest morning since 1957. And in -1 degree New York City, it was the coldest Valentine's Day in 100 years.
Commuters are back on the road after a 3-day weekend, and many are experiencing slippery and slow travel conditions after a variety of precipitation stormed up and down the East Coast.
Virginia, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Maryland saw the heaviest snow totals from the storm, with places in each seeing over 7 inches. Down south, suspected tornadoes touched down in Florida and Mississippi, destroying up to 10 homes and damaging a high school. The temperatures are rising today, which could cause flooding in some areas.
East Coasters should brace themselves for rain and high winds today as Winter Storm Olympia wraps up. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. In today's edition of Family Entertainment News, the latest Christian film, Risen, opens in theaters this Friday. It's the story of a Roman commander who's ordered to investigate the disappearance of the body of Jesus after the crucifixion. Charlene Aaron spoke with the leading actors and the producers behind the scenes of this powerful film.
Risen is the resurrection story as seen through the eyes of an unbelieving Roman soldier. British actor Joseph Fiennes plays Clavius.
I thought that particular lens through the eyes of a Roman tribune who is there to quell these uprisings where messiahs pop up every week before the emperor of Rome arrives, that he has to bring order along with Pontius Pilate to Judea. And out of that, he falls into the greatest murder mystery of all time.
Clavius and his aide Lucius, played by English actor Tom Felton, are tasked by Pontius Pilate with ensuring that Jesus' followers don't steal his body and claim he's risen from the dead. Felton, known for his role as Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter franchise, says he was drawn to the story's creative take on biblical events.
The biblical story, or the biblical side of the story, is something that I've grown up with, and I know a lot of my generation has. It's kind of ingrained and instilled in us in a way. So to have the opportunity to tell those stories from a completely different perspective was really exciting, and sort of put a different twist on probably the world's most famous story.
Rich Peluso of Sony's faith-based Affirm Films is one of the project's producers. He hopes Risen continues the box office success of faith-based films.
This is a real valid storytelling perspective, and I think with research it shows 127 million Americans go to a Christian church every week. That shows that faith-based storytelling is not a niche, it is mainstream.
Some say Risen picks up where the 2004 blockbuster Passion of the Christ left off, something producer Mickey Lydell says is a tall order.
Obviously that was done so well, so beautiful. In every way we wanted to try to repeat that high quality of filmmaking.
Meanwhile, Peluso hopes audiences see Risen as more than just another story about the Bible.
I want believers to walk out of that film just energized and excited and just blown away from the other side of the story, and really refreshed and going back to the scripture. For non-believers, I want them to really wonder, did maybe Christ really rose. Maybe he rose, and start to think about and dig into the evidence that they have right in front of them.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Looks like a powerful film, and Pat, Risen opens this Friday in theaters across the country.
Well, I think it's going to be a blockbuster. It looks fantastic.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it. It's really. We got a sneak preview here at Regent, and Joseph Fiennes. He's an incredible actor. I loved him in Luther. I loved him in this, and it's a worthwhile film. Christians, everyone actually should go see it.
Wendy endorses it.